Spencer Howard is the founder of Straight to the Points. He's a luxury travel and loyalty program rewards expert. Welcome to the show, Spencer.
Thank you so much for having me, George. Appreciate it.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us a little about your personal life, more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Yeah, I'm based in the DC area. Worked in politics for the first part of my career and gave that up. People are much more interested in talking with me about work now than they were then. Um, but yeah, since 2017, I've been writing about how to use points and miles to travel, airline miles, credit card points, hotel points, whatever it is. And I focus specifically on the luxury travel side of things. I guess you could say my goal is to get people to travel to different parts of the world, but also enjoy the journey and the experience while they're there. And I'm trying to show people that whether using cash or points, there's ways to do it without kind of just bankrupting yourself. So I'm trying to get more people to experience kind of the finer side of life.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate that. And how interesting if you find yourself at a cocktail party and you tell them that you're a political operative versus
Yeah.
a luxury travel specialist. It'd be interesting to sort of A/B test the response you get.
Yeah, it's well, especially in DC where lots of people, I guess, still work in that world, and
Mm.
I'm always the oddball now, so it's kind of fun. People have to pause and they're like, wait, they have to readjust their kind of standard operating procedure for a conversation where there's like, what do you do? Who do you work for? What do you do? That like it's just
That's pretty
so
funny.
I like it. I like to change it up a little bit, I guess.
Oh, definitely. So how does that happen? How do you decide to make a career out of it? You absolutely love it. You can't stop learning about it. What?
Yeah, that's actually I mean that's the very quick version of it. I was working at the US Travel Association in a political capacity, but we would get press clips and I was reading just kind of day-to-day stuff and I ended up stumbling upon a blogger. And I at first kind of dismissed it, like, why do I care what a blogger thinks about this public policy issue? Because I was used to reading like think tank stuff. And so that was my first kind of exposure to points was he also talked about just how to use points to travel. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. What's that about? I'd never cared about credit cards. I think I had one credit card. It earned cash back, not much. And to me, it was just a thing to have so I could rent a car. And then I just realized all the possibilities, all the different points you could earn with different credit cards, sign up bonuses that could give you a head start with things. And yeah, I spent about 4 hours a day for like 6 months just reading about credit card fine print, airline rules, and how you could use their points. And yeah, it was a little nutty, I admit, but it kind of became my obsession. And as I guess within about 9 months, I was freelance writing about it and trying to help other people with it.
I think that that's really cool. You know, you find something that piques your interest and you want to keep going back and learning more. And I mean, reading fine print on a credit card,
Yeah,
you know, policy or an
not everybody's idea
airline.
of fun.
I mean, you better be into it.
Yeah, it's kind of an obsession, and you never know. And now it's kind of tough, I guess, where it's like, is it my hobby or is it my work? Is it both? Like they all kind of blend together. Um, so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way though. I love what I'm doing. It's great.
Yeah, well, I think that that's cool and cool for you, but also cool for us because I don't need to read 4 hours a day of that
Yes.
stuff we were just talking about because there's a 0% chance I would ever do that. But as somebody that owns businesses, I'm interested in, I guess, maximizing how it is that I use credit cards, and
Mhm.
I don't spend a ton of time thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I'd love to selfishly kind of get some insight from you today.
Yeah, for sure. So it's well, I was gonna say it's one of those kind of things where it's a choose your own adventure game. Like you can decide how deep into it you want to go. I clearly went like full tilt, but you can be more casually interested in it. You just have to kind of set the right expectations based on how you're going to interact with the points world. It's just to me, credit cards are just like a tool in the tool belt. This isn't your entire life. It's just a piece of it, and it's something that can help you do some other things.
Certainly, it makes sense that you would start with what your expectation is because that's how I do everything. So,
Yeah.
what is the desired outcome here? What is it that I want to get? So, but that's not necessarily obvious. So, what are some examples of common expectations?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I focus on trying to fly in like business and first class on long haul flights. I'm 6'3", I'm a big guy. I like space. I still take my fair share of economy flights domestically with my knees in the seat in front of me. But when I'm traveling a long distance, I'd like to try to be upfront. And to me, points makes that much more accessible. I mean, by all means, if you've got the budget for cash tickets or you find a good cash deal, like go for it. Like the goal, to me, the goal is not to say you book something with points, it's just to get the experience you want. For me, points makes that easier, a lot easier. And so when I think about expectations, it's one, it's like setting up your goals, but then also how you interact with like credit cards and points. You can be somebody who just repeatedly gets credit cards and gets sign up bonuses. It's the fastest way to earn points. You're never going to earn points faster than a sign up bonus. It also means there's a lot more to track. You want to make sure your credit score is in good shape. You don't want to be spending money just to hit sign up bonus minimum spends. You actually just want to use your normal everyday spend to hit that. So that's just the more effort, but it's also more points. And then you have kind of that middle of the road tier where it's like, yeah, you get several cards and then you supplement here and there with a new sign up bonus. That's another way to go about it. And then there's the kind of keep it simple and you get maybe three cards and you never think about it again. You're going to earn fewer points than somebody who's kind of a maximalist, but it's also less bandwidth for you mentally. So you won't necessarily get as many trips with the points, but you'll still be able to do something. So it's, again, it's just kind of understanding what's a reasonable expectation. The analogy I often share is like, I'm not a golfer, but friends of mine are, and some of them just show up on the weekends, they drink beer, they hit the ball, they see what happens. And then others like will go to the driving range every week and they'll go to the putting green. Like they're going to do a lot better when they go out on the weekend and play with their buddies. And that's fine. But everybody's still having fun because they're doing it the way that they find enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, I think that it's the second part of here's the expectation that I want, but I need to be honest with myself. Is what am I interested in doing slash willing to do, and what am I going to consistently do?
Yep. Yeah. And that's the key. And it's just kind of if you set your expectations, you kind of remove that possibility for big disappointment. And I think that's where it's like, this isn't a magic trick. This is just, it's just kind of methodical. You set yourself up for success and you just have to kind of know what you're working toward.
And to make it, well, I mean, there's levels to all of it. If I take one big trip a year, and
Yeah.
then it's probably a lot easier to successfully do this. Or if I'm traveling on a weekly basis, so I guess my question is how much spending or credit card use do I have to do to actually have an impact?
Yeah, sure. So I think anybody who's spending, $1,000, $1,500 a month can easily take part in this because a lot of this minimum spend requirements for sign-up bonuses are around $4,000 in 3 months. There's some variety, and business cards will be steeper in some cases, but it's a good barometer. Um, but again, it's about kind of putting the spend you're already doing. So for me, when I got into it, is I just been using a debit card or that like really weak credit card I had, but I was always paying things off all the time. And that's kind of one of our like first rules is the points will never outrun the interest. Like don't pay interest, pay everything off on time every time. This is an extra. It's and like if your credit score is not, over 700 quite yet, like work on that part first. Like it's I think sometimes there's a misconception that we're reckless with our credit. And I was like, you'll actually never find anybody more obsessed with their credit score. Like people brag about their credit score in the kind of the broader points community. I mean, my wife and I the other day were like, look, checking ours and like, I think I was at like 826 or something, and she was 8 points below me. So I'm very proud of myself. It was a healthy
Attaboy.
competition there.
Let's go.
But it was just, I mean, but the idea is like anybody who participates in this is kind of in that world of like 750, 775, 800. Like we're obsessed with our credit scores. It's a very kind of different idea than I think most people have about what this is. Yeah, so for me, it's always like get your credit in a good position. If you have the spend and you can leverage that with for to earn points, like go for it. Debit cards give you nothing back. this gives you something back. But if you treat it like a debit card, you win. Like that's it's a game. I think that's the biggest thing. It's a game. If you understand the rules, you can get something out of it.
Well, I really appreciate those first 2 points. Don't pay interest. Don't get yourself into credit card debt and accumulate interest and roll over balances.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are a good steward of your credit score. So you have to know what it is and work to improve it and get it over 700. And then appreciate that it is a game that has rules and you need to be an active participant if you hope to win.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, it seems odd to say that about like credit cards and loyalty programs, but there's an opportunity there. And they airlines, hotels, banks, they kind of set the ground rules and you just have to learn how to get the most out of them.
Yeah. All right. So let's transition into type of card. We're talking about flights.
Yeah.
Are there cards that are better for travel in general, specifically for flights?
Yeah, I generally tell people to focus on what'll get them flights first. Um, you'll generally get kind of more bang for your buck out of your points when redeeming for business and first class. If economy's your thing too, that's great, whatever. There's some, little quirks to that, but still using points for flights is where I usually start. And then hotels can either be something you pay cash for or you can supplement down the line with some other cards for hotels. But the biggest thing I always say is start with transferable points. So you have different banks that have points that can be transferred to a variety of airlines. So Amex, Chase, Capital One, Citi, Wells Fargo. There's even a program called Built Rewards where you can transfer the points you're earning to 10 plus airlines with each of them. And there's a lot of overlap in between them. So uh, personally, I have cards from a bunch of these banks and I earn points with each of them. And then they can all pool into the same airline program, or sometimes they have kind of unique partnerships. And so you can take advantage of those one off transfer partnerships. But the idea behind that is that you don't want to get stuck with one airline's miles because that locks you into booking flights with that airline or their partners. And having the access to their partners is great, but what if you had access to the partnerships of a dozen or 20 airlines? And so that just expands your reach across the world, makes it a lot easier to find what we call award space, the seats you can book with points, and just increases your chances of success in booking what you want.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. How much cat and mouse is going on where cards will realize people are really taking advantage of this thing, so we're going to shift the rules.
Yeah, the so one thing I always say, and I actually just posted on Instagram the other day, is that that points are a depreciating asset. Airlines will devalue their award rates and start charging you more for the same flight. It's inevitable. It's like so for me, it's a matter of like understanding what you're earning, make sure you're using the points. You don't have to be reckless with that. Like still be strategic about what you're booking, but don't just sit there. It's not like your kind of investment portfolio. You don't want to see it just rising just to see it because you want to feel good about the big number. I'm like, save that for your actual money. Um, but yeah, there's going to be changes. Banks change cards and their earn structure. Some it's not as common as long as you're kind of playing within the rules. There are certainly people who get into some gray areas and beyond. Those things can like have an impact on you. But it's like if you're just a normal person, like the rules are pretty set, and they're not doing too much that'll just kind of like throw you off. So
Got
you
it.
might even see new cards though. So sometimes that's fun. You'll see a new card launch, new bonus categories. Um, yeah, it just yeah, that world is a little more settled though. It's the airline side of things, even the hotel side, where every year there's like some airline or hotel is making it, a bit more difficult. But yeah,
Got it. That's another wonderful piece of advice. Use the points. Do it.
yeah,
Don't just look at them. I'm sure there's a lot of people. I could see myself doing something like that. Kind of
yeah,
like the credit score, right? It's like I'm kind of
yeah.
obsessive about this.
Hmm.
I've accumulated all of these and I'm never going to use them. But that was the whole point. So we're losing the
Yeah.
script.
Yeah, it's the point of points is pointless unless you're using them. Yeah, I think it's and again, it's you don't necessarily want to just say like, okay, every time I'm traveling, I'm using them. For me, like I want to save them for international travel because I know I want to be comfortable on those flights. if there's an economy ticket domestically that's cheap, I'll just pay cash for it a lot of times because I'm like, okay, I'm going to save these points for when it really matters because I can afford this economy ticket pretty easily if I'm, flying a couple hours. Paying to fly like business class to Asia is a much bigger financial outlay. So that's where I'm like, let me make sure I have the points for those trips.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, so how do you work with with people? Do you coach them through it? Do you just offer information?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. I have a quick start guide that's, I think, honestly good for anybody. It just kind of gives you the foundational pieces of information that will then make learning all the other stuff a lot easier. I always tell people points is easier than you expect, and to get deeper into it, harder than you might expect. But it gets easier if you kind of understand the basics at first. Everything you learn kind of follows a similar pattern. So that's one way. Just like check out the quick start guide on my website. I do one-on-one coaching calls mostly around like credit card strategy, getting people set up so that they're maximizing their spend as best as possible. And then kind of say the main thrust of my business is I have a flight deals newsletter where I send out award space that people can book with their points. So it's a focus on international business and first class flights. Premium members get the exact dates and a breakdown of the best ways to book based on what points you have. I've had some friends and my brother tell me that I try to idiot proof the process. I think that's a little aggressive, but the idea is like it's hard enough to find, especially 2 or 4 or 6 business class seats to travel to Europe or Asia. I'm just trying to make that a bit easier and then not have your head explode trying to figure out which points to use. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, that's my passion. I would say is getting people on the plane. The earn side is fun. Everybody loves like that high of earning a lot of points. I kind of focus on the area that's a little bit more of a grind and try to make it less of a grind.
Yeah, well, I think that that makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's so many things that just I always try to figure out. This is a new thing that I see value in. So monitoring points, taking advantage of the money I'm already spending. So if I can do that smarter and get better travel, why wouldn't I want to do that? But I also don't want to bite off more than I can chew. So how can I create a sustainable habit
Yep.
for monitoring this? So how much time, headspace are we just obviously the sky's the limit, but
I think I'm in that sky somewhere.
yeah.
It's because that's just what I think about. But I mean, I know people who they get credit cards, they set it up so they have the right cards based on their spend habits. So like if you spend a lot on groceries, you have a card that earns 3 or 4x on groceries. If you go out to eat, you have a card that earns 3 or 4x on dining, and then you just stop thinking about it. You're just like spend, pay it off, spend, pay it off. And then as you're thinking about, oh, I want to go on a trip, ideally planning ahead is great. Then they start to kind of poke around a bit and see like, all right, what are the potential flight options based on where they're going? And then they can either themselves search for award space and kind of track that. I have a lot of, I mean, why I have a lot of readers is because they don't want to do all that and they just follow my newsletter and eventually I send something that works for them. I have had so many readers who just say, like, I just gave up searching for award space. I used to spend hours doing it, and now it's just like, he'll send something eventually, and I'll just book that. And so that's kind of how I look at it. While it's not a personalized, like one-on-one situation, I'm sending 3 to 5 a week of these alerts, so I'm gonna hit where you're going eventually.
For sure.
So yeah, that's. But it doesn't. Again, if you do that, you're not spending much time at all. You might not spend any time on it in a given week. It's just around the booking that I think you spend the most time. That kind of initial planning, and then once you're ready to book. I mean, it's like so many things in life that like little bit of upfront effort completely shapes how everything goes from then on. It's why I tell people to read the quick start guide, get yourself set up with the right cards for you, and then you're kind of like on autopilot for at least a while. And then once you're ready to book, that's when it's just like, okay, let me re-engage with like a different side of this.
That makes a ton of sense. That seems accessible and yeah, I love it. So where can I find that guide?
Yeah, it's on straight-to-the-points.co, very specifically .co. I also create a lot of content on Instagram. My Instagram handle is straight to the points. Um, shoot me a DM if you have questions. I'm always answering DMs. I get to them eventually. Sometimes they get caught up in spam, but I'll get there eventually.
Love it. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show Spencer your appreciation. Share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. Go to straighttothepoints.co and check out everything that Spencer is working on. Pick up your copy of that quick start guide, then follow him on Instagram as well, and shoot him a message there. I'm sure that you could find a way to get on that distribution list that you talked about at Straight to the
Yep.
Points also.
Yep. It's right on the website.
Perfect. So strikes me that that's the first step, and set the intention and just get into that universe, and you will find your way to the kind of travel that you really want. And life's too short to be stuck in a crappy seat over a long flight, Spencer.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much, George. Appreciate you having me.
Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.